Most Disney movies are bright, happy, and joyful movies. Happiest movies of all. But there are some movies that can be pretty scary, especially during this first Disney movies of the decades. Some are very scary, and some are very bright and joyful, like today. But today, we'll be counting down the most scariest, most darkest Disney movies that might have scared me or might have scared you. If a particular one that's not on this list, let me know in the comments below, because there's so many dark moments in these Disney movies. I like to touch on all of them if I can. Anyway, on to the countdown. Number 5, Beauty and the Beast. This one's not too dark. I just put on this list because the Beast used to scare me when I was little. There are some dark scenes within the Beauty and the Beast, like in the beginning, or in minor places, like Gaston trying to kill him. There are not that many dark movies and scenes in this movie, but I like to touch on it a little bit and give a new insight to it, because it was one of the movies I was afraid of for a time. I just used to skip all the parts that scared me, like the fight scene, the beginning when the Beast is mean, all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to bring a bright message, and that's why it's probably so low on the list. Number 4, Bambi. Now, if you have listened to my top 5 Disney deaths, saddest Disney deaths, you probably already know about Bambi. Not only does Bambi's mother die within this movie, spoilers. Not only does that happen, but there's also a forest fire, and many more things that happen to our poor little critter friends like Bambi, Thumper, and Flower. Towards the end, there are many things that happen to these poor guys, like a fight between Feline and another deer. It's just Bambi, which is so terrifying. Sure, it is very creative and very interesting. It's part of nature, of course, but the colors and everything custard in just makes it more scary and more intense. And of course, there's also a forest fire. A forest fire just gets afraid and scary to even look at. It is just scary, and you're worried about Bambi's if they're ever going to get out of this. Of course, Bambi's father even takes responsibility of Bambi and helps him out through everything. Gets him out safely. He followed him through every fire and got out safely, of course. All the animals came out safely, but by that moment, I didn't even know if they were going to make it out, because the fire was just spreading through everywhere. There's also a scene where Bambi loses Feline, and the hunters are after them, which is also a very tense scene. Not only does Bambi lose his mother, but there is also another scene where a bird tries to fly away. She ends up getting killed as well, and every animal is freaked out. By this scene, you would be afraid, because every animal is running for their lives within this scene. So, this scene is just heartbreaking to watch. So, I suggest if you got people that are really afraid of scenes like this, just watch the happier moments of Bambi. Those are the ones you have to remember. Because, despite all the scary things that happen, there's also some happier things within the movie as well. So, that's really why it's low on the list as well. Number 3, Snow White. Now, being Walt Disney's first movie, not everything has to be all bright and cheery at the first. So the very first movie happened to be very dark. With a scene where Snow White's running through the forest with some scary trees and some scary rocks and branches and stuff like that, to the evil queen just being dark as she is. this whole movie was so dark from those two things, made me not watch the movie for a few days' time. I hardly remember a thing from the movie. For a while, I kept avoiding it because of this reason. One time I gave up the coverage just to watch it. I faced my fears, but unfortunately, there's nothing you can watching this movie. The story is very cheerful, of course. But there are some dark scenes, especially in the ride. It makes it all more scarier. With the scary adventures, it seemed like the witch was there. It seemed like the queen was there at every turn. Sometimes I fear if anyone ever watches this movie, ever. One time there was a big marathon of it once. But despite all the scariness of Snow White, we gotta remember that there's always there's special about this movie. Being the first movie ever to touch people's hearts. And Disney, what more they can do with it. So it's important that we must have these dark scenes within here. It made it all more intense. Number 2, Pinocchio. When I watched Pinocchio, the one thing I had in my mind was to find out Jiminy Cricket's first venture. When I was younger, I saw many cartoons with Jiminy Cricket's name all over it. With him in it telling wisdom and everything. Songs and stuff like that. That's why I liked him so much, I guess. But when it come to Pinocchio, I didn't know a thing about it. I just knew it was his first adventure ever. So when I went to watch it, I really wanted to see his growth and how he became such a wise cricket he is right now. And it did not disappoint. I saw his adventure right through. But nothing appeared for me for the part I was going to watch. Pleasure Island. Pleasure Island was a place of carnivals and enjoyment for Pinocchio to just mess around and have a great time with being a bad boy. But unfortunately, that came with a cost. And then turning into donkeys. It really faced me as a kid, and when it did, it traumatized me. Even at dinner, no one couldn't figure out why I wasn't talking. It was because of this scene in particular, the donkeys and everything. All I could say was it was the donkeys that made me this way. That scene, I'll never forget. I'll always warn people about that scene in particular. Anyone that tries to decide to watch Pinocchio, definitely. And that's why it's most scariest. Not only that, there are like at least 4 or 5 villains within this movie. There is Honest John, Gideon, Stromboli, Monstro, and a lot more. So there's a lot of villains, and it scares people. It scares me when there's so many villains like that. I draw the line when there's 4. 1 or 2 is fine. 4 is crazy. Number 1. Fantasia. Now, Fantasia is a very surprising story. People have warned me about this movie for years, but I still kept my interest into it. But I did see a lot of pictures that kept me off from it. Like the dancing hippo, the dancing alligator. I thought that was weird at first. Like, why would there be a dancing animals? I mean, it's cute, but why? It just seems so out of place to me. But then I saw this. The devil himself. The devil himself is very scary. To anyone who would watch it, at first glance, would just be horrific. What were you thinking if you saw this picture for the first time? I don't think you would enjoy it right away. Right away, I kept avoiding it. But something drawn my attention to Fantasia. I really don't know what it was. I guess it was because of the fact that Mickey was in a sorcerer costume. But any reason, I saw that scene too. It also scared me with all the brooms and then coming to attack him with water and stuff. I don't know why, but this movie really traumatized me a lot. Having to watch it was the biggest risk I ever took. Eventually, I just gave up all my fears and decided to watch it. And I really liked it in the end. It's a very interesting film. It's meant to be watched when you're older. So, don't expect too much from it. If you're looking for old Disney knowledge and all that stuff, this is definitely the movie for you. It'd be weird, but it's a classic movie of Fantasia. A very good movie. Now, we've spoken number 1. Here are a few honorable mentions. Dumbo. Dumbo is not that scary, but for me it was very interesting. This scene, Pink Elephants on Parade, is not a very scary one to me. It didn't scare me as much, but it did scare a lot of people. For me, it didn't scare me as much. I just felt like it was out of place and maybe a little too creative. But then again, this scene could be one of the most interesting scenes of them all. The Jungle Book. The Jungle Book is a very dark film when you think about it. Walt Disney even said so himself. There was a dark film to make. He avoided reading the book entirely. Of course, when you find the live action one, it's good enough. It is definitely closer to the book. And you could tell what they have done was very dark, with Shere Khan, fire everywhere for Mowgli. It's a very dark film. I can't really explain how dark it is, but I think it's meant for you to watch for yourself to find out how dark it really is. Especially in Mowgli. If you guys haven't seen that movie yet, it is really dark. And I think it went a little too far with it. It was enough for people. If you have a dark film, you gotta keep a balance of happy stuff and dark stuff. For me, I think Mowgli was just too dark. That movie was just too dark. And I feel like it didn't give us much to actually love the characters or anything like that. If your story is way too dark, well, good job on you for creativity. But if your story is too dark, it doesn't give you much room for the characters to grow and make you feel for them. In order to make something dark, you have to feel for the characters along with them. And that's what the movie fails at. The Jungle Book is a good movie. And an interesting story at that. And Disney does it well. I suggest you stick to the Disney Jungle Book version of the cartoon and the live action ones, for they done well despite the darkness of the story. Ichabod and Mr. Toad. This one is not that scary, but it does have some fair share of dark moments, like the Headless Horseman. That is scary moment. I think it's just played off for laughs, but when he really comes, they really don't waste time. They really make him scary as he is. I just can't imagine. Now, I wasn't too scared of him, but really, they had to admire the fact that they have took their time to actually make a scene like this. And then there's Mr. Toad's movie. Not too scary at all. But his ride is very dark with us literally going to hell and a dragon no less. This ride is very dark as well, making the story way more darker than it had to be in the first place. Winter Willows was not that dark of a story anyways. So it's very interesting to see how this movie really turned out to be a dark movie it really was. Fun and Fancy Free. This one's not remotely dark, but it has one dark scene in particular that I like to mention. The part where Donald Duck goes nuts. This scene is really terrifying to watch. And just watching Donald Duck just go nuts is really, really surprising to see. During this scene, Goofy, Donald, Mickey have nothing to eat. And Donald gets so hungry that he gets really angry and explodes. He starts eating their cow, which is like their best friend. Eating that out of nowhere is just really scary to watch, and him just tormenting that poor cow. It's just a scary show. All the Disney villains. I'm not going to spend too much time on the Disney villains, but they'll have their own list of their own as well. But some are very scary, like Judge Doom, Claude Frollo. All these villains are very dark, but I will make I'll make my own list of that one for my own. So you'll get those people eventually as well. And there'll be more. Keep a lookout for more dark Disney top 5s, because there'll be more coming out pretty soon. Like top 10 darkest Disney cartoons. That has a list of their own as well, with a lot of dark cartoons. And there's a lot of them to explore. So not much to say. If you guys have any suggestions for any more dark Disney scenes, let me know in your comments. Or cartoons, or anything that's Disney related. That's dark. Let me know in your comments below. And I'll see you next time.